So welcome to a live stream, and this video is just going to be me doing some practicing and playing through some sections and talking about how you can apply the techniques of memorizing and maybe talk a little bit about some specific tips and tricks to use for Rock 3. This is going to be the third concerto that I'm working on. So first of all, there's this section in the first movement where it fell apart in my live stream performance. I wasn't necessarily expecting to fall apart there, but at the same time I realized that I did not have an aural memory, which is the memory of how the music is, where the melody line goes, how many times it repeats, things like that, and the structure of the right hand here. So this is one of those spots that was hard for me to memorize. One of the things that can be easy to do is just to try to spot a pattern. It's a little bit complicated, but you can see that here the thumb stays on F, so that's one of the key things that I'm going to remember here. And then you kind of have to have that melody running continuous in your aural memory, and then know where it picks up in the piano. So those are some of the things that I was missing that caused it to fall apart a little bit there, and then I didn't get into this section. And this section is still sort of a mess for me, but I'll talk about some techniques I discovered that are going to make this possible to play. The technique that I found for these is don't be glued to the keyboard and just using rotation. For me, it helps to think about picking up, so it's an anticipatory picking my hand up for this. With a large hand, I always get scrunched with these thirds because they're so close. It gets so close in here, the spread of the notes. Right there is where I usually have the trouble in the left hand. So see how I'm getting ready for that one. A little more of a drop, and so that carries the momentum through the notes a little better. So that's a little tip and trick. Now that takes some coordination to get it with the right hand. It's a canonical statement, right? So I don't have it yet. Okay, now rather than just now, I can do some slow practice here too, always slow practice, but it's also effective to do up to tempo practicing, just a very small snippet like that. Just to repeat that section and get it in my muscle memory, technique memory, so I know exactly what technique I'm going to be using. So that takes some time to develop, to decide exactly how you're going to move for a given section. It takes a lot of time to learn a piece like this because you have to do this for every single part. I wish I had the 10 hours a day of practice. If I did, I would. I do not. I'm just having a lot of things on my plate to do, and I do music professionally, so it's a lot of teaching, and I do theater music and non-classical for a lot of my work. So I just don't have that much time. If I'm lucky, I might have 1 or 2 hours in a day, and that's why it's taken me, over a year just to get to the point where I am at Rock 3. But the more hours you can give and the more detailed work you can do on every section, the better it's going to be, and I know it's going to continue to get better because I'm going to continue to do this type of work. I wanted to look at this section a little because I know a lot of people are fascinated by this section. There's so much going on. It's triple polyphony, 3-voice polyphony. We always need to hear that top voice. But then at certain times, it's really effective to bring out an inner voice because of the dynamics, and also because just of the interest of the texture. So there's certain times when you might want to hear this wending and winding lower voice. it's so you have melody and accompaniment in the same hand and the right hand. It's pretty crazy. The other thing is the bass, I just realized recently, is so important. It ties it together into a larger outline, a larger structure. You're bringing out the larger harmonic movement in the structure. Important not to start too loud when you're starting a crescendo, because that's a crescendo area right there. And then we diminuendo again. And then it picks up. And here, the bass. So I need to solidify a lot of these are 5/3s with fifths. Playing fifths with 5 and 3. It's awkward even for a large hand. It's just awkward, but it's even fingered that way. The score gives you that fingering for a few of them. What is my left hand doing there, right? So I gotta make sure I know that. And that's a part I'd love to bring that out with the left hand. So I just need to learn it better. So notice I'm taking, what, 2 beats. So I'm going to take those 2 beats and try to make sure I get them. Starting with the tie, I'm holding my finger down on the tie, and that's where I stop. I stop on the next beat. I don't stop before the beat, right? I land on that 3rd beat. And alright, let's add some expression. So you can make each little building block perfect like that, and then you string them together. You string a couple of those together. And you can do more of the phrase. And I want more bass there. Really need that A. I'm getting a lot of E, but I'm not getting enough A. It's hard. It's a fifth. It's a little pinky finger who's got to play that. Big arm motion this way. Okay? This is why this piece is so hard. These kind of things. I'm always getting too much E, so. A little better. So really I'm focusing on my left hand. Left hand alone is not a bad idea. Most people do not practice left hand alone ever. I do it a little bit, not enough really. But this is a good candidate for a spot where I need left hand alone there. If I had a pencil, I would write left hand, circle that. Oops. Landing on that, most of the arm weight going toward that pinky. Okay, so there's another section that I'm working on here in the 3rd movement that is really, I'm just not accurate there yet. It's this section. Mainly the left hand again. With Rachmaninoff, it's often the left hand. I think he may have been left-handed. Tom was saying Rachmaninoff was left-handed. I can believe it, given the way he's writing. The left hand is leading a lot of these sections. Not to mention the section right before it, which I also need to practice. Okay, all right. I've done left hand here alone quite a bit, but it's still not perfect. Whoops. That's not the section I was going to show you, but this section. All right. If if you saw the video that I just put out on tips on memorizing, this is one of those times when you really have to memorize the movement of the left hand down to that low C. And this is another place where I'm having, he writes it in the markings. That's why the markings are so important to memorize. It's this. And what you want to do with those short staccatos is lift, go towards swan position. Watch my video on swan position. Go towards swan position, and then you drop on these tenuto markings. Right? So that's what I'm working on, still programming that into my muscles. I'm still not quite there, especially with some of these jumps. And the jump, the way it feels down to that C, it changes because the distance is changing every single time the harmony changes here. Rachmaninoff loves to go through these gradual chromatic changes. Pretty good. It sounds like you're done. No, nowhere near, because it just doesn't feel as easy, and it's not memorized. I'm looking at a score. It doesn't feel as easy as I know it should feel. Having a lot of experience, I know how it feels when it's learned, and it's just not quite learned yet. Single movement that I'm making. If you don't understand any of the movements that you're making at the piano, then just work on it. Just keep working on getting that movement as efficient and making it feel as easy to play as possible. That's just the name of the game. I mean, you'll see a lot of videos about technique telling you what to do, but the whole basically always keeping the end goal in mind is to make it the most efficient, the smallest amount of motion, the least tension necessary to accomplish your goal. A place like this, you're just really going to want to eliminate all tension. It shouldn't feel tense. You don't have to be tense. If you're moving your arms, you have to move a lot. You have to move quickly. Sometimes I undershoot the E, sometimes I overshoot the E. This E. The bass. Okay? I'm going to slow it down, see what happens. And that's my section that I would work. And I sort of barely got to the notes that time. Did not feel easy. So yeah, I'm gonna hit that a couple more times if you don't mind. Now the right hand's messing up. I tend to overshoot just because my arm moves quickly and it'll go too far real easy. I've got a pretty long pinky. There we go. I'm also really, as I'm doing this, I'm really paying attention to what my wrist is doing. If the wrist is a little late to go up or down, any of those places, and you can, by the way, hopefully see from this angle where my wrist is on each one of these if you're trying to play this. It's taken me years to be able to feel out the proper motion to use, the motions to use to play this. That's what you got to memorize, though. So if you haven't even found the proper motions yet and you're not sure you're using the right technique, by the way, this is true of any piece. Maybe it's something that's an easier piece. And maybe I'll take a look at some Bach just to show you how to apply these things with something that's not huge chords. But that's a section that was really getting me in the third movement. I really have not put much practice at all into the ending, or the second half of the third movement. I'm kind of, my detailed work is left off right around here. I'm just starting to memorize this. A very tricky part for me to memorize. Because it's a seemingly arbitrary notes. It's like, well, sometimes he might do an octave down here, but sometimes he might do a broken octave. And it's like, okay, you got to know when he does the octaves, hitting the octaves, and when there's a broken octave. You know, for instance, you've got to know these middle. It's just. So here is where aural memory, aural, A-U-R-A-L memory really comes into play. You have to know exactly how this is going to sound, how it's supposed to sound, and that's how you know. And then I take the music away and I just say, okay, let's try without music. Is it going to kind of make it sound the right way? G minor, A. I think of that as an A7, but then it goes. It really interesting goes to really interesting movement to a F minor, which is gorgeous stuff. And so, yeah, the more complex those harmonic movements are, sometimes the harder it is to memorize. And it just, you've got to know the chords. I wouldn't say you have to know music theory to memorize, but just, music theory is just a theory about how to describe, it gives you tools of how to have the music make sense to you. But really, more importantly, I would just say have the music make sense to you and have an aural memory of what the music sounds like when you play it. That's all part of this visualization and studying the score away from the piano and being able to hear the music and or visualize yourself playing it as you're hearing it even better. And so I'm referring to this video that I just made on tips on memorization. It's just part one of a two-part series, and I'm going to start to show you how you can apply those techniques, those forming points to successful memorizing. And that movement, okay, so that's G minor, E flat minor, and then you go to this, G minor again, but just a different voicing. And then this next page, I felt it's just the left hand. You really have to memorize the left hand basically so well, because everything, its left hand is equally as important as the right hand. I'm hearing this as like an inner voice. It moves, the thumb in the left hand keeps moving in this chromatic melody. It's an interesting sub-melody that's here. I'm bringing it up so you can hear it. A lot of interest there in the thumb, right? Right, so I haven't memorized this measure well enough yet. Right. Yeah, and that just adds a whole nother dimension of color and interest and spiciness for these chords. It's always like that with Rachmaninoff. So how are we doing? We have anybody here? Let's see. Yeah, a few people. Let's just read some of these questions and things. Play the second concert concerto. Oh, play the cadenza. You want to hear the second concerto? Tom plays that. Use less pedal. Yeah, absolutely. So as not to mix the complementary colors of separate voices. I think it could help, definitely. When you guys learn a new do you learn each movement? Start with the end of the piece. That's a smart idea. A lot of people start at the beginning. Start at the end or start at the hardest part for you. Yeah, I did it movement by movement. Sam, yeah, that's what I did. I started with the first movement. I did start the third movement just to make sure I could play it. Listening is important too. That's a really good point actually that Keelan made there. Listening to a piece will give you the aural memory
without even having to play the piece. You have an oral, so you can listen to performances of the piece. To have the piece in your mind already. Now that was already done for me with Rock 3. I mean, who hasn't enjoyed listening to Rock 3 over and over? I did that as a music student, of course. So yeah, I'm trying to think of another one of these passages where I learned it wrong or I memorized wrong. The second movement has some. So I mainly have done the first and second movements. Is where most of my work has mainly been. So I'll talk about that. The second movement, there was this part where I learned the wrong chord. It's one of my favorite parts. It starts with this build up here. You have a melody in the thumb of the left hand. It's got all these inner voices. That's hard enough to memorize just because of the complexity of the polyphony, right? But this part, I had memorized wrong chords in this part. Right? You could play so many different chords here, voicings. What I was doing is, something different than what was written, and I just had it. I had been playing it that way and I hadn't even realized, oh my gosh, the reason why this never seems to really work very well at this spot is because I had the wrong chords on it. So you've got to be extra careful as you're learning a piece like that that's this thickly scored. Right? So I need to just reinforce that. Crescendo, so I don't want to get loud too soon. So you got to work all those things into that technical memory. I see that double F here. You know what? I'm going to turn off the dehumidifier just because it's making a lot of background noise. But I see the double forte there. And I'm thinking, okay, just play as loud as possible, loud crashing. And I think that chord is supposed to be loud crashing double forte. But then you've got to find a way to pull back a little, just so I feel like so you could bring out some of the more important voices. It just continues. He doesn't really, there's always this polyphony going on, and there's so much in this section. So the challenge for me is, and I'm still working on this, is voicing these chords so that, his tenuto markings are always, you've got to do those. You got to make sure those notes are sounding. And I'll point out some of those as I go through this. I'll point out some of those for you if you're learning this. So you can hear. Because of course that's the theme, that's the side theme, right? And I'm thinking the right finger in the right hand, the third finger in the right hand, there's so much going on. That's just a huge interest I think, with that voicing. And then the left hand, make sure you bring those spicy chords out.
love, like right here. All this done with thumb in the right hand has something cool. So it's like you gotta change up your weighting and everything. Now this third finger, this D just jumps in, this voice that just jumps in, right? Don't overlook it. Because he's gonna do something with that voice. So watch where you gotta follow that voice to where it goes. That's Rachmaninoff. It's all the polyphonies in the piano. This is another one I learned wrong. I just totally overlooked that G natural is so cool there, man. Listen to that spicy sound. Let me just bring out it's hard to bring out the G alone. Let me try that. Let me try it again so you can hear it. I love that. I just love that. But I did miss it the first time I was looking at this. That's that sighing motive. Like a sigh, right? Okay, well, I think that probably just about does it for this live stream. Let me see if we can do any more comments. I think it sounds like a good idea. Learning a piece shouldn't be so quick. I love Rock 3 and Rock 4 for just how creative they are. Oh, yeah, man. To get some advice on a piece of work I'm working on. Yeah, I gotta get, I don't really have a website or anything. Thank you, Kaylin. The best place to get advice is probably my YouTube channel at this point. Just leave a questions or comments on a video. And I'm pretty good at getting back to you or giving you fingerings or, specific advice. But I will let you know. I will definitely announce more resources as they become available. I'll play a little more since a few people are here. I'll just play a little more. Got to take the opportunity while the house is empty. I know I said I would work on some easier music. Well, let's hear some Bach. Go to some Bach. I actually, I usually start the day warming up with Bach, and I haven't done that today. So I always play better and I practice better. The Goldberg Variations is one of my favorite because it's how Bach, thinks and dreams at the piano. I think it's an amazing tour de force of just all the different keyboard textures and techniques that you can use. Starting with Variation 1, I mean, it's... Whoops. Part of the problem is I'm not really relaxed enough. Not having warmed up. I think it's just good as you're warming up, even to try to play your piece really super soft. passage always gets me. I might need to change the fingering because it never feels fully comfortable. Variation 2. So you can see I'm playing these by memory, and one of the things I'm trying to do is describe to people, because I know that, and I haven't played these, they're a little rusty, I haven't been playing them, but the memory is still there, and it's a sequential procedural memory. But I find constantly as I'm playing these, when I haven't played them for a while and I'm trying to retrieve the memory of the piece, what I'm thinking about is the next beat that I'm about to play, because obviously you can't be really thinking about this, it's too late on the beat you're playing, but you gotta see, now I'm thinking about da 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 da, right? Now I can see the notes. It's like I see them on the keyboard and I know I'm about to play those notes. And I know the technique I know the ways I'm gonna move to get there. And that all comes to me in that moment because I've worked on each section of this piece too. And the variation 2. Now I can usually start at a pretty weird spot with this. Like if I want to, I can just start in the middle of that. I mean, I could figure it out. Whereas a lot of people just have to start from the beginning. If they make a mistake, they're like, oh, I made a mistake, I gotta go all the way back to the beginning. Because they only have that muscle memory, and it's a very surfacey muscle memory of just going through the notes of the piece. So that's why, watch my video that I just put out on tips on memorization. It's very short. There's just 4 main things, and 3 of them, I feel like, the muscle memory is the most important, I'll agree. But 3 of those things, those points, people don't really do a lot of, and that is, being able to visualize the score. So if I have the score to the Goldbergs, I don't have it right here. But I have it up here, and I can visualize the notes. Like, I say I want to start in the middle of variation 2. I've got the notes in order, and I can start right where I left off. Pretty much. Now more of my technique memory is kicking in. I'm like, oh yeah, that's how I played it. Now notice I'm using a very light touch, especially for those quick moving notes. And I'm going to bring out those longer notes so you can hear all the polyphony. Let me do it better. Something like that. Anyway, again, I haven't played these in, I don't know, months. The canon. getting all the nuances and expressions I'd like, but it's nice to know that the memory is still there and is still solid, even after not really touching the piece much for a few months. Check out my tips on memorization. I sort of boil it down to a few important things. Now, I don't show all the application, but I'm trying to do that in some subsequent videos to show you how to build those types of memory, the 4 main different types of memory. Hearing the music in your brain just before it happens or as it's happening and knowing what's coming next is a big part of that. And you can do that just by listening to a piece. So let me see if there's any... See who's in here. Anybody listening? There's a couple people. Is there any piece you recommend by Bach? I play almost like I'm slapping the piano. Yeah. Well, certain pieces you're going to use that technique. So I haven't really listened to any Bach, but would like to start. Any pieces? Yeah, I definitely recommend. Well, the Bach poured out probably the bulk of his composition for keyboard instruments and particularly the organ. I used to love listening to the Bach organ work, so I could recommend that. I could also recommend St. Matthew's Passion, beautiful. And actually, if you just want to start out with something that's a little shorter and more accessible, the Brandenburg Concertos. Check out the Brandenburg Concertos. It's extremely amazing listening to them, particularly 3 and 5. And they're all good. You can't go wrong with the Brandenburg Concerto, but yeah, listen to those. You'll start to really understand Bach's compositional aesthetic. And for keyboard, the well-tempered clavier is amazing. I don't play enough of those, but I've focused mainly on the Goldberg variations recently. Another variation that I'm working on, variation 20. I used to have a lot of trouble with this, but it's gotten easier over the years of just really analyzing how I'm moving and just the little separate motions required. I heard a really famous pianist backstage because I used to turn page for very famous piano players, and I met them, and it was very interesting. But I heard him playing this variation. He wasn't playing it on the program, but he was warming up backstage, and he kept stumbling over the beginning of this. And I'm not going to mention the name of the pianist. Everybody he has festivals named after him that he started and things like that. So I'm not going to name the pianist. But it was just really comforting to know, okay, well, so and so is struggling with this. So and I was like, I think I've got that part solved. But I it doesn't make me feel like, I can play that better than him. I mean, I know that he's trying to play every detail, and you just have to keep going over it. Oh boy, I hate that part. I hate that part. I mean, I can do it when I just isolate it. So let me try that again. Okay. Yeah, so that's a place that I'm going to identify. I'm going to flag that place. That's a problem I could solve. I think in one day I could solve that. I'd have to figure out how I'm moving, maybe change a fingering, and that will be completely solvable, I think. So maybe that's going to be one of my goals for today. I'm going to, I think, end the live stream here because I'm just going to do some drilling and practicing, and I don't need to have that on live stream. But I hope that you all found some of this helpful. It's sort of like being in a piano lesson, and just being able to hear these tips from the perspective of another pianist, I think, is valuable. I wish there was more people would put out content like this. But anyway, there you go. And hey, Doug. Maybe I'll play one last thing here, just to close us out, and then I'm going to end this. But I love being able to take the opportunity to do this type of thing while the house is quiet. That's great. So I'll play that Chopin Opus 10 number 2, and it's a work in progress. But you'll see how I work on it. I'll play it, maybe stop at a few places and work on it. Try to talk, but yes, I'm doing it under tempo, because if it's not clear under tempo, you definitely shouldn't try to take it up to tempo. That's just a rule of thumb here. Okay, so sometimes my fourth and fifth fingers, they're tripping over one another. So let's try that again. So one thing I can do to avoid that is I can hold my hand more at an angle like this, rather than letting it do this. I can hold it at more of an angle like this, and that way I tend to have space to work with, and also keeping the wrist a little higher, I tend to have space to work with now with the fourth and fifth finger not tripping over each other, right? Which is easy to do in this etude. Something's not learned there. And I don't know what I just did, so I need to work on that. That's what it is. So now, okay, I'm reinforcing my memory of the notes. See? All right, great. To do is do that section that I just finished at a faster tempo, because I'm afraid that what I'm doing up here will not work when I speed it up, and that's just something that you learn by experience. Okay, I'm going to be able to play it this way faster, maybe I'm not, and right now I'm thinking that I don't think I'm going to be able to play that way fast, but I'm going to try. Oh no, I'm starting in the wrong place. That's what I'm concerned about. So it just needs a lot of precision of the movements. That part's always hard for me. That part right there. That's so awkward. So like what I just did, I should repeat that 10 times. I'm not going to do it for the sake of you guys that are just there want to hear some nice playing, okay? I'm not going to repeat that 10 times, but I should. That's what I should do to learn this piece, and I will. I really wanted to talk about this because this is one of my favorite techniques. The slide. I'm just going to use fifth finger for those two notes. It's written in there. I think Chopin put that fingering in there. I love it. It's one of those things where I'm like, yeah, that's definitely my favorite way to play it. There's an alternate fingering. You can use 4/5 there. Anyway, let me do that again. That section is one of the trickiest. And this what I'm doing right now, that's the hardest, maybe the hardest part, I think, of that piece. The slide works great, but then you also have to know how to move your wrists. There's lots of little flicks of the arm. This part, which I've just got to work on. And that works, what I just did, but like I'm like, there's got to be an easier way to play that. Maybe not. Ba-da-da-da-da, that part. I gotta refinger it. I think I gotta refinger it. So anyway, let me get the end of this piece and then I'm gonna end the live stream. So. Yeah, that's now some of the spreads between 2 and 1 become a little tricky. And he wants you to use 1, 2 on this for 6th, right? All sorts of noises going on outside, which are very distracting. I'm not sure what's going on. I feel like I just had this the other day. This is how it can be if you don't really solidify something. I don't know how that crept in there. Hopping off there and coming down. Let's see if any of you know this etude and have an idea. Hang on. I just remember when I play. Hey. Yeah. Yeah, this part's just tripping me up. So let's go to the third movement of Rachmaninoff. The repeated notes in this part are the ones that get me, but I think I figured out in theory how to do them. I find that having my hands angled a little more like this is helpful for this passage. So I'll do it like right here. You can see my elbows come out a little bit. That helps me play those really crisp repeated notes. And again, come just angling that. When I start that repeated note, I got 3, 2. That's my finger angle. It's like 3, 2. All those repeated, all those doubles are 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2. Except this one is 1, 2 when I'm coming from the octave, right? All those are 3, 2, 3, 2, right? I use a funny fingering for this. Yeah, you really can't miss even one of those notes. Like if you want to get this to performance level, that's crazy. You can't miss it. People are going to hear that. I want my hand to be as large as Rachmaninoff's to play that, but it's just few people have that large of a hand. This is another example of where the left hand really has the dominant part. I had 2 sets of fingers, but I really like ending up on 2 on that long G there. 2 there, which is funny. I think that's what the score gives, but it just seems to work. Two against 3, guys. All right. So I'm gonna play that section a few more times and just maybe clean it up a little bit. The beginning of this has to be so reliable. So, I can drill that, I can do that a few times. And most often I'm missing the bass on some of those notes. But I feel like that's got to be part of it. That's got to be a big part of it. I tend to overshoot octaves, big hand problems. Now this is but you might notice I'm not doing a whole lot of slow practice here. Done that. I have done a lot of it. I'm not doing it now. I'm trying to get it up to tempo, so I'm taking a small section up to tempo, or close to tempo. And sometimes I might slow it down a little. But like that's not slow practice, that's pretty fast. But I did do slower practice at one time, and I might return to it if I think it's necessary. Now ideally I'd repeat that about 10 times. I'm not going to do it right now, but this part could be stronger. So I'm finding the music in the passage. Okay, the music is he wants the thumb brought out in the left hand. Again, the left hand is dominant. That's the fingering I like. It's tricky though. Gotta pick up the fourth finger and move it like that. Still needs to be cleaned up. So I'm going to go and do that, guys. I'm going to practice this. Hope you got some ideas of how to practice from the video. Keelan says, thanks for the advice. It's helped a lot. Thanks a lot. All right, we're at almost an hour. So I am going to end this and have a great week, guys. Stay cool. I know there's a heat wave here. So definitely stay cool. Drink plenty of water. All right, peace out.